I've always been a light sleeper, waking up at the slightest noise, but ever since moving into this apartment, my sleep has felt different. There's an unsettling weight to the air at night, a kind of pressure that makes my chest tight. I chalked it up to stress at first, new place, new routine, but deep down, I knew something was off. It started with small things, waking up at exactly 3:12 a.m. for 3 nights in a row, the feeling of something just outside my vision when I rolled onto my side, the subtle creak of floorboards when no one was there. But the worst of it began 2 weeks in, when I experienced my first episode of sleep paralysis. I woke up, staring at the ceiling, my body completely frozen. I tried to move my fingers, nothing. My toes, nothing. Panic set in. My breath came out in shallow gasps as my heart pounded in my chest. I had read about sleep paralysis before, but knowing what it was didn't make it any less terrifying. Then I saw it. At first, it was just a shadow in the corner of my room near the closet, a formless smudge in the darkness. But as my eyes adjusted, the shadow took shape. A tall figure, slightly hunched forward, its long arms dangling at its sides. It didn't move, didn't breathe, but I felt its gaze pinning me down. My mind screamed at my body to move, to fight, to do anything, but I was trapped. My limbs remained useless, my throat unable to form a sound. I could only stare, my pulse hammering as the figure inched closer. The worst part? Its face, or rather, the absence of one. Where eyes, a nose, and a mouth should have been, there was only a smooth, featureless surface, like someone had erased its identity. I wanted to close my eyes, to block it out, but I couldn't. My vision stayed locked onto the thing as it crouched near the edge of my bed, its head tilting slightly, as if it were studying me. The silence in the room was suffocating, thick like tar. The only sound was the frantic beating of my heart. Then, in a single jerky motion, the figure lunged forward, and I woke up. I gasped, sitting up so fast I nearly threw myself off the bed. My limbs were mine again, my breath ragged. My room was empty, no sign of the thing, just the familiar furniture, the closet slightly ajar, the soft hum of my fan. I wanted to believe it was just a hallucination, a product of sleep paralysis, but then I saw the closet door. I always shut it before going to sleep, always. That night, it was open by an inch, and the next night, it was open by 2. For the next few nights, I tried everything to keep myself from slipping into paralysis again. I slept with the lights on, played white noise, even changed my sleeping position, but nothing helped. 4 nights after the first episode, it happened again. This time, I awoke to an unbearable pressure on my chest. It felt like something was sitting on me, pressing the air out of my lungs. My body was locked in place. The closet door, now open wider than before, gaped like a black hole, and standing just outside of it was the figure. It was closer now, nearly at the foot of my bed. I wanted to scream. The pressure intensified, like invisible hands were pushing down on me. My lungs burned, my vision blurred. The thing didn't move, but I could feel it watching me. It wanted something. Then the air changed. The room grew colder, and I heard something I hadn't before, a faint scratching sound. It was coming from inside the closet, from deep within the darkness, like nails against wood. Slow, purposeful. Panic clawed at my throat. The pressure on my chest lifted, but I still couldn't move. My mind raced. Was this just another hallucination? Another trick of sleep paralysis? Then, the closet door creaked open another inch. My body was released. I gasped, lurching upright, drenched in sweat. My limbs ached from the tension. My head snapped toward the closet. It was open, just a little wider than before. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I've experienced sleep paralysis before, but this time was different. It was worse. It started the same way it always did, waking up, but not really. My body felt like it was trapped under an invisible weight, unable to move no matter how hard I tried. I could still see, though. My room was dimly lit by the street lamp outside. its orange glow filtering through the blinds. The shadows on the walls shifted slightly, but I told myself it was just my eyes adjusting. Then I heard it, a low, raspy breathing. Not mine. It came from the foot of my bed. I wanted to believe I was imagining it, but as I stared down toward my feet, I saw it. A shadow darker than the rest of the room, hunched over, watching me. My heart pounded in my chest, but my body refused to respond. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. My throat felt closed off, as if something was pressing against it. The figure moved. It didn't walk. It glided. One moment, it was near the foot of my bed. The next, it was beside me. Up close, its shape was more defined. A gaunt, almost human-like figure, with limbs that seemed too long, too thin. Its face was indistinct, like a blur in the darkness, but I could feel its eyes on me. I didn't need to see them to know they were there. Staring, studying. Then it spoke. Not with words exactly, but in a way that pressed into my mind, filling my head with whispers that weren't quite in any language I recognized. The sound made my skin crawl. It wasn't just in my head anymore. It was in the room. I felt a pressure against my chest, heavier than before, pushing me deeper into the mattress. My vision darkened at the edges, my lungs burning for air. I struggled to move, even a finger, anything to break the paralysis. Then the whispers stopped. The weight lifted slightly, but the figure didn't move away. Instead, it leaned closer. A hand, bony, ice cold, brushed against my arm. I felt the sensation, real as anything I'd ever felt before. My body shuddered, but still wouldn't obey me. I was trapped, helpless. Then it spoke again. This time, I understood. "You let me in." My pulse slammed against my ribs. The words echoed in my skull, though I had no idea what they meant. I hadn't let anything in. Had I? My mind raced, searching for a logical explanation, but there wasn't one. The thing moved again, drifting toward my face. The smell of something rotten filled my nose, making my stomach churn. I wanted to close my eyes, to block it out, but I couldn't. My body wasn't my own. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, it vanished. My body jerked violently, as if released from an invisible grip. I gasped, my lungs sucking in air desperately, my chest heaving. The room was the same street lamp glow, the same shadows, nothing out of place. But I wasn't alone. The feeling of being watched lingered, heavy in the air. My skin prickled as I slowly turned my head, terrified of what I might see. Nothing. And yet, as I lay there, struggling to shake off the fear, I couldn't ignore one thing. My closet door was open, and I never leave it open. I used to think sleep paralysis was just a trick of the brain, something scientific, something logical. I had read about it, sure, but until you experience it yourself, you don't understand what it truly is, what it truly feels like. The first time it happened, I was exhausted. I had pulled a double shift at work, barely eaten, and collapsed into bed sometime past midnight. The moment I hit the pillow, I was out. Then I woke up, or at least I thought I woke up. My eyes opened, but my body stayed still. I tried to shift, but nothing moved. My arms, my legs, dead weight. A crushing pressure pressed against my chest like someone was sitting on me. Panic set in, but I couldn't scream, couldn't even take a full breath. My bedroom looked exactly as it should, dim light filtering through the blinds, my nightstand cluttered with the usual junk. But something was wrong. The room felt off, heavy. The air was thick, like I was breathing underwater. Then I noticed it. In the corner, by the closet door, stood a shadow. At first, I thought it was just the way the streetlight outside cast shadows through my window. But no, it was darker than the room itself, a figure standing too still. Then it moved, not fast, not aggressive, just a slow, deliberate lean, like it had noticed me watching it. My heartbeat hammered in my ears. I tried to close my eyes, to will myself back to sleep, but my eyelids wouldn't budge. It was like my body didn't belong to me anymore. The thing took a step forward. The closer it got, the more details I could make out. Its limbs were long, impossibly thin, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. It didn't breathe, didn't shuffle like a person would. It just moved, as if it had always been part of the shadows and was now peeling itself free. Then it stopped. Right beside my bed, my body was frozen, but my mind was screaming. I could see its face now, or rather, the absence of one. Just a void where features should be, shifting like black mist. It bent lower, leaning toward me, and the pressure on my chest grew unbearable. My vision blurred, but I could still feel its presence, its weight, its cold. Then it whispered, not in words, not in any language I knew, but I understood it. I see you. The room plunged into darkness. The air disappeared from my lungs, and for a split second, I thought I was dying. Then I shot up in bed, gasping for breath, my limbs finally my own again. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would burst from my chest. I looked around. The room was empty. The closet door was shut, but the weight in the air lingered. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. For weeks, nothing happened. I convinced myself it was just a one-time experience. Stress, exhaustion, my brain playing tricks. But then it came back, again and again. Sometimes it stayed by the closet. Sometimes it was already standing over me when I woke. Every time it got closer. Every time the whispers grew louder. Until one night, I didn't wake up alone. I felt the pressure before I even opened my eyes. The weight wasn't just on my chest. It was everywhere. Arms, legs, fingers pressed against me. My body was pinned. And this time, I wasn't paralyzed. I could move, but something was holding me down. The whispers turned into a low, guttural sound, almost like laughter. My blankets were ice cold. I turned my head, barely able to breathe, and my gaze met the shadow's face, no longer a void, but something worse. It was my own face staring back at me, mouth open, smiling. The last thing I remember was it leaning close, pressing against me, whispering in my own voice, "Time to switch." I woke up the next morning in my bed. Everything looked normal. But when I stood up and glanced at the mirror, the reflection didn't move right away. And then it smiled.